Well, basically, welcome to our February roundtables. I'm Eden, and we're glad you can make it today. With me are Kelly, Calissa, and Clemmy, my awesome colleagues. And before we get started, as always, we go through our collaboration agreement, just a few housekeeping items. Please have your microphones muted when necessary to make sure there's no background noise. Please listen deeply so we can really understand what people are saying. I had to remind my daughter this weekend that when she was little and I'd be driving her and a friend around and I could listen to their conversations, I could always tell that she wasn't listening so much as waiting to take her turn to speak again. And I kind of mentioned to her because she said that she felt like someone was doing that to her this weekend. And that's very frustrating. We want to know that people are listening, not just kind of waiting to talk. Please embrace this time. This is really meant to be yes and time. In other words, like, yes, I have Parkinson's, or I'm a care partner to someone with Parkinson's, and I'm so many other things, like a support group leader, like a sports fan, like a mom or dad, or, good friend. So we're all those things. Be willing to agree and go then one step further. And of course, move with intention. When you hear a good idea, run with it, kind of say, oh, that would work with my group and I want to do that. And as always, be patient with technology because it's wonderful when it works, but it doesn't always work. So now, next week is Valentine's Day, but the week is actually random acts of kindness, which I always think is just so wonderful. And so I want you to maybe share any random acts of kindness that you have. I can kind of start it off. I remember when I was in college, and this was such a minor thing, but it was pouring. And I'm walking back to my dorm, which is totally on the other side of campus. And this girl is kind of walking next to me. And she just turns to me and she says, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to Hume." That was the name of my dorm. And she just holds out her umbrella and she says, "Get under here." And it was just such a small thing, but it really meant a lot to me because I also arrived at my dorm a lot less drenched than I would have been otherwise. But it also kind of shifted that now I will actually offer an umbrella to a stranger that I probably never would have done before. But that just really meant a lot to me. And so I just always think about that kind of random act of kindness. Anybody else have something they want to share? Oh, taking food to someone who is sick and didn't feel up to cooking or going out. That is pretty awesome. I joked that during COVID, I don't even know how much matzo ball soup I made whenever somebody got COVID, but it was like the cure for everything. And that's just a big deal, taking food to somebody. I think it's Emerald Agassi who says food is love. And it's kind of just your way of saying that I love someone. Around Christmas, I leave rolled up $1 bills with messages hidden on the low shelves of the dollar store for the kids to find. That is awesome. I think that's awesome. Oh, I secretly buy lunch for first responders when I see them. I love that. But I do admit, I bet those kids get so excited. That to me is just probably something I'm going to start doing because that's just really cool. And so help clean up grocery carts in the parking lot. Yes. That is a very random act of kindness because nobody wants that hitting their car. And so, not to mention the store employees appreciate that they don't have to run all over the place. I pay the toll for the car behind me. I like that too. Help elders shop in the grocery store. Pay toll for the car behind me. Yeah. And that person just pulls up and they get this happy little message, and that's so cool. So thank you everyone for sharing. So now what are we going to talk about today? Let's see if I can make my slide move. Speaking of technology not working. There we go. So our roundtable for February. Last month we were talking about secession, but when we came back, it seemed like a lot of the groups talked about how their group hasn't really returned after COVID. But we didn't do a deep dive into it because it kind of seemed like everybody was more apologetic for the fact that their group went off topic. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We're fine with that. We're cool with that. As long as you're not sitting in silence in your breakout room, we don't really care what you discuss. You know, this is just meant to be a guide, but that topic apparently came up a lot. And so then we didn't really get to deep dive into it because people were more like, I'm sorry, I know I wasn't supposed to be talking about this, but, and clearly this is on everyone's minds. How are we getting folks to return to in-person groups after COVID? What's worked? How are you combating your own frustration? So this is something I want to kind of go further into. So now the big C. My coworkers are secretly chuckling because they know for me, I'd like to be talking about cookies right now. That would be my favorite big C. We could all do a bake sale, compare recipes, and I would just be so ecstatic. And while that'd be wonderful, that's not why we're meeting today. So let's talk about what's happened. The first, and it's a blunt question, but it's got to be asked, have folks died? Because we know that we've lost a lot of people. And so it'd be kind of just ridiculous to gloss over this. You know, have people passed on? Are folks worried about meeting? There might be some health problems, so they're worried about congregating with anybody, you know, so it's like, would they feel more comfortable if there were masks in place? What would make people more comfortable? And then this is also a big one. Have they just gotten comfortable remaining at home? I am so guilty of this, even before COVID, to be honest. I've worked at home for years. And I remember saying to my husband at one point, it's not like I've become agoraphobic or anything. I'm not scared to go out, but you just get comfortable at home. And suddenly you're like, do I need to be at, do I need to see this person? Do I need to go there? Or am I just happy on the couch with a book? And you get a little complacent. And then a big one is also, has the group changed and old members haven't returned? Usually, as most of you know, new members will come in and they'll just kind of get absorbed into the group. So you have your regulars, and then you have a few new people, but then eventually after some time, the new people become the regulars as well, and everybody integrates and it's all nice. But after COVID, that's maybe not what happened. Maybe a lot of the older members stayed away, the regulars, I should say. And then some new people come in. And so then the older members don't come back because suddenly this doesn't feel like their group anymore. It seems like they left, a new group kind of formed, and they don't feel like they're part of it anymore. And that's just, you know, it's hard because you want people to feel like this is still your group and we still want you here. And lastly, how are you managing? Because again, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge some frustration. You're working hard to put together a great meeting and maybe only a few people show up. And, you know, even though in your head, you're like, well, as long as I'm helping somebody, that's what's most important. But you were hoping for maybe a bigger turnout. So now I don't need to, you know, I'm sure you're already aware of how loneliness and isolation affects Parkinson's disease, which is really why getting folks out to support groups is so important. I'm not going to belabor this point since I'm preaching to the choir here, but I do want to remind you that all the things you're doing are still positive, and I do want you to kind of like pat yourself on the back for that because it is important. But these are just some research that's been done to kind of show how adversely Parkinson's patients have been affected by the isolation that comes with COVID. So we do have some good news that the pandemic response measures, including the vaccination, have led to a decline. Yay, right? Gradual return to life. However, because there's a caveat, a lot of people still have not really gotten back to life. It's suddenly not the same priority that it was. So you're really kind of fighting an uphill battle. So what can we do? Some thoughts for doing something social before or after the meeting to engage folks. All things go back to dessert for me or books. So, but it might be a good idea here to, you know, if you were to go to lunch before the group, or have even like a happy hour after the group with like drinks and some food. It becomes more social. It becomes more than just a support group meeting, and then people maybe feel more of that connection, like this is worth my time to get out of my house and put clothes on and be a person. Because that's really what you're combating is, yes, get out of your sweatpants and come visit, or come in your sweatpants, we don't care. Combining the meeting with another activity like an exercise group. I know one of the support group leaders said to me that the whole basis of their support group was actually that they're a support group who exercises. This is not meant to be confused with an exercise group that eventually becomes a support group. You know, like a Rocksteady boxing class, for example, that after 6 months, the people are sort of like, we're kind of each other's support group. You guys are really focusing on that support group that maybe does another activity. Have other social activities that might encourage folks to attend the support group. Again, this is where you do want to talk to your group. What do they like to do? You know, do they want to almost have like a book club before the group or something? What would they be interested in? And lastly, find out what's keeping the folks from the group. Why are they not showing up? Is it because they don't feel as welcome? There are more new members. Is it that they're just concerned about, something happening with them? What's going on? And so now I'm going to have you break into groups, and I want you to talk about what has worked to get more folks to your meeting. Are you doing a hybrid or have you moved to Zoom? How are you combating frustration as a leader? Because these are all big questions. Have you, I know the hybrids people find very frustrating, but the flip side is that you're saying, well, if people won't come in person, this might be what our group has to evolve to. But how's that working for you? Do you have any tips? Because I know a lot of people aren't loving the hybrid. And so I want you to just kind of think about that. We're going to break into our groups, and I'm going to put in the chat the questions. And again, these are just meant to be guides. If you guys go off topic, cool. This is your sort of like your support group meetings or your group. This is your breakout group. You might start talking and then 10 other topics come up. I know I heard once that in a 60-minute period, men will cover 4 topics and women will cover 40. So our conversations tend to just wander, and that's okay. So let me put them in the chat. And then we are going to be going into our groups. You don't have to do anything. Kelly will be moving you into the groups. You have the chat, but again, this is just a guide. I want you guys, this is your breakout rooms. Hi, Kelly. Welcome to your first meeting. We're glad you're here. So normally the way this works is we do a little bit of a lecture. This is being taped, so you can also always watch it back. We're going to stop taping while you go into your breakouts. And then we're going to come back and discuss what everybody came. So the hope is that people learn something, that, hey, I tried this in my group and it really worked. Or even if I tried it and it didn't work for my group, here's why it didn't work for my group, but it might work for another. Usually are in the breakouts for about 45 minutes. So depending, I'm in Eastern, I should say that I'm in Eastern time. And then we come back and we share. Also, if you would like to rename your screen name to your name, that would make it easier for your people.
Oh, perfect.
Glad to see everyone.
This meeting is being recorded.
See everyone.
You broke up
Hold
an
on 1 second.
excellent session.
I do that. I interrupt everything. Before we go on, I do want to ask, I should have asked in the beginning and then I didn't catch it in time. If everybody would like to update their handle, like I'm Eden Feldman on mine, just so that we can easier talk to people. So for example, you know, I know in room 2, I just see iPad 4. I'd love to know who that person is. So when I'm going through, I can address them, because I do want to get started, hear your feedback. Clearly I missed a good conversation in Bernard's room. So let's get started. Let's start with room 1. We have Dorichka, Howard, Jonathan, Kelly, Marge, and Sarah Stegall. You guys could tell us what you talked about.
Unmute.
Who wants to come off mute and share?
I
in that
will,
group?
I will, as soon as I can get my full screen. Hold on here.
I'm not in group 1, but could you remind people to put where they're from along with their name?
Okay, if you want to put where you're from too. So I should adjust mine to say Eden from Tampa, Florida. So I will do that.
There you go. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Hi, Roger.
I love seeing new places. I just want to see where they're from also. Thank you.
Okay. Marge,
Yes.
she said their group prefers Zoom. They're still not meeting in person, but their group prefers Zoom. And then Evelyn, she holds her meetings at a assisted living facility, and they provide the snacks, and then they also have a therapist. They do Big and Loud, and they have a therapist there to help with that, all donated. And then Brenda. I don't remember. I didn't write anything down for Brenda. Okay, Kelly, she has a caregiver group at, is she starting Kelly's brand new starting a caregiver group at the boxing RSB facility. She's a veterinarian. Her husband died, I believe, in August, and she has decided to donate her time in providing a care partner group because she has 12 years of experience of doing that. And so this is what she wants to do with her time, is help other people who are going through what she went through. And let's see. Dory. Again, I didn't write anything down. I'm sorry. Maybe some of these people. There you are, Dory. Speak
I'm
up.
helping to lead a group for Parkinson's movement disorder and the partners at our elder care facility. My husband has Parkinson's, and it's just a continuous learning experience. And I'll just say this group has been great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dory. I'm sorry I didn't write anything down. And then Jonathan joined us, and he was an anti-group person, but after a year he went back, and now he sees the benefit of them. Do you want to add anything, Jonathan?
Jonathan, add about how you have to create value to your thing, to your presentations. Get them, lure people in.
You want to come off mute? Talk about how you added value to your presentations.
He added humor, and they love it. Love it.
I don't know. It just has to, you have to create your own value, and you can't force people to come to the meetings. So like I said, we have a very good facilitator, and we engage in various topics, and people see a value in our group to come there and share the experiences, and that's how our group operates.
And then for our group, I told them I just bribe them baked goods and fruit. And no, we've got a long-standing group. It started in 2009, and I took over probably in 2014, leading the group. And I've just, over the years, just built relationships. I try to make new people feel really welcome. I visit with all my people before the meeting to catch up with them. And I think that's a big part of it, is building a relationship. And once people are comfortable, then they're more apt to tell people about it and bring new people. I have a lot of people who bring people with them. So, and Howard joined us late. I don't know where Howard is. And then we had a couple, it was Kelly who gave us some good advice to have a medical advocate on hand in your meetings who can make sure that people are getting their proper care, treatment, and also how they can get help from respite. Everybody needs a break, and how important it is for the care partner to get that respite. And I think that's about all I have, unless some of my group members have more to add.
I think you did a great job.
Okay, thank you.
You did.
Are a new support group leader. We are doing support group fundamentals on Thursday, February 16th. So we did put that link in the chat. And also now let's go to room 2. Bernard, Don, John, Lauren, Seal, and Tamra. You're on mute, Bernard. I see you talking, but you're on mute.
Let me start by saying we covered most of the topics on your list. So we're an inch deep and 5 miles wide in our discussion, but it was a very diverse group. We had groups starting all the way up to groups that have been around for many, many years. We had real diversity in size, from a few people to one support group leader who felt that having 16 was too small, and we encouraged it. No, that's a good size. But another group that went over 150. In our wide-ranging discussions, we centered on a couple of themes, though, that came out for the successful support groups, or the ones that are feeling successful. And key in those, two of the key themes that absolutely resonated across the table were the social component of the support groups. People don't want to come and feel bad. They want to come and feel uplifted. And many times the topic went beyond PD, Parkinson's disease. It was other topics. So when they talk about PD as in a context, but it wasn't to be a downer, it was education. The other theme, which really resonated across the board, was the need for fun. So, it's another dynamic of being social, doing things that the members want to do, but having planned activity. So the largest group in our breakout room has numerous events every month. So they don't just have the support group. In fact, they have a couple versions of support group. The all in, everybody comes, then several segmented support group meetings. But they also have, outside of the support group meetings, lots of events they schedule. And several of our groups talked about that, from bicycling to dance to singing, etc. So if you will, fun comes in building up the social components, and so people want to come. And several people mentioned, people not coming from more than, wanting to come from more than 15 minutes away. And our large successful one talked about the fact that people come from an hour to more than an hour away. And they're pretty sure it's because they put so much emphasis on the social aspect of making people feel welcome, making it fun, people enjoying each other and accepting that they'll break out into smaller groups and, do things with each other. And that those are great. And they eventually lead to the group getting larger. Then on another topic, we touched on several things, one of which I want to amplify here. For those of you who've seen me talk on the subject of support groups and reaching underengaged communities, this is the big one in our chat. And that is the issue that every support group isn't for everybody. So you shouldn't get upset. They really aren't. So every support group sort of takes on its own character and so forth. And that's who you are. And so people will come, and if they see that and that fits them, they're there. But if they don't, they may go away. And, the previous speaker mentioned that, one guy went away and came back a year later. That's not as unusual as you think. And then along with sort of every support group isn't for everybody, there's also, I shared with them some of our research. There are other reasons people don't want to be at your support group other than they don't like you. And two of the ones we talked about in depth are, and especially for the younger ones and people who are still working, a fear of going out in public and letting people they know have PD because they fear losing their job. Or an even touchier one is you may not have spousal support or family support. They may be in denial. They're not ready yet. And so, it's more difficult to be so overt or outward with your diagnosis and wanting to attend support groups and bring your significant other along. So just the recognition that there are numerous reasons why people may not come. And to Eden's last comment there, going and talking to people about why they don't come. We were judgmental in the beginning of our journey, and then we start talking to people and finding out there are lots of reasons people don't come that were nowhere near what we were thinking of when we started the process. And now and now, quite frankly, many of them we hear so often, we realize they're more important than the things we thought were the reasons people weren't coming along. And then, let me not talk all over it. Right. Does anybody from my group want to share anything before I sort of wrap?
You're on mute, Don. You're on mute. You got to unmute yourself, Don.
The idea of having a spouse not want to associate with other people with Parkinson's or acknowledge that their mate has Parkinson's, that may have happened here and there or something, but it certainly isn't something we plan on or adjust for, because I've not seen it in the area we're in, but I'm sure it can happen. But that wasn't really the base of our conversation. It was, to me, that would be kind of an outlier.
Okay, so, I'm unmuted now. One of the things that helps draw people to the meeting is we have refreshments and door prizes also. So people stick around for the door prize even after our meeting is done. So that helps.
And Don is at the door greeting people as they come in.
Amen. Well, it makes their day complete.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then the last item I'll touch on is we spent a little bit of time talking about this. There are a fair number of Parkinson's patients who are living alone. And so how do you deal with that? And we talked about the fact that some groups, in fact, one group in particular that I know about, found out that 2/3 of their membership were Parkinson's patients living alone. And so their response to that was to form a buddy system. So as soon as people come, they pair them up with somebody else in the support group, and they become, the buddy is responsible for keeping the communication up, for outreach to them on a regular basis as they start their journey.
Nice.
I like that a lot. Because we have a flying solo group here just for that reason, because it is a whole other set of issues. So, okay, thank you, group 2. How about group 3? We have Ann Miner, Dave Orlowski, Jax Brown, Judy Reynolds, Juliana Goska, Myra, and Roger. Who's going to come off mute?
We had the greatest group also, Bernard, not to try to rain on your parade, but we had quite a discussion, everything from support groups to wine. And I think some of the really good ideas, maybe Anne can talk to her idea, because I think that was excellent. Anne, do you want to share, or let me share, or whichever?
Okay, you caught me. I'm trying to get some other stuff done because I've got my
I just
meeting.
thought, since it's your idea, you should explain maybe.
Okay, I'd be happy to. My meeting's at 1 o'clock and I'm not quite ready for it, so. Moving
Sorry.
around. Okay, all I said was that we have, some of you have heard this, the opportunity to get an announcement, a public service announcement on the radio. And I went to Chamber of Commerce meeting and somebody said they were at the radio stations. I asked how to touch base with them. I got a name. And this woman said that she represents all of the local radio stations and she would put my announcement on all of them. And so I wrote something up and memorized it and had an appointment with her to record the announcement over the, do a PSA on the radio. And it goes out several times a day on all the stations. And I have a fairly small group, but about half of the people have come because they heard it on the radio. And I did mention that I had one guy driving around saying, I hear you on the radio. Where are you? I can't find you. So it's, if you can get, and it's totally free. And she also did an interview for me. And so I would highly recommend that you look into that because it reaches the community.
Yeah, I thought that was the greatest idea. Never would have thought to do that. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Another idea was to send an email, which we have done, but to make it a little more, we miss you. Please let us know why you are unable to attend, or maybe put a questionnaire in there asking if they would prefer to come different day, different time, and see if that will elicit some kind of response. Since they have to answer questions, they might be more likely to answer the questions and reply. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to try both of those ideas, actually. And then we talked about neuro-ophthalmologists, and we talked about non-alcohol wine, and so we pretty much
Breakout organic. You
ran the clock down with whatever else. Anybody else want to add to that?
I want to hear about the non-alcohol wine.
Yeah, that was a popular discussion, I think. I'll explain it later.
We talked about also the idea of supplying lunch and having meetings around lunch, supplying pizza as an option, having the meeting before happy hour or right around happy hour type of thing. Just different ideas as to strategizing around food, maybe. Also talked about hearing issues at meetings. People have complained about hearing the speaker, hearing the person asking questions, maybe using a microphone and a speaker system, which can help also. Talked about alcohol-free wine and talked about getting second opinions, even though I brought it up regarding ophthalmologists, but it could certainly apply to neurologists also. That don't be afraid to get a second opinion and when you think it's necessary.
to know more about the non-alcoholic wine. Dave and Judy are pretty permanent fixtures at our Alliance group or Resilience group. So you can always get on the PMD Alliance website. We meet every Tuesday, and we could probably cover that topic for those interested.
I'll put a short little chat in here just so you'll know what I'm talking about. And anybody with questions, get hold of me.
How about room 4? I'm going to assume you lost some members. That's Denise and Steve Sane. One of you want to come off mute and share what you talked about?
Yes, it's Steve. I guess I was nominated to do it right as people were cycling off. Nonetheless, I'll be glad to carry the ball for a little bit. We, like the other groups, discussed all kinds of things and all kinds of ideas to try to increase or make sure that attendance is pretty steady. And I only wrote down 2 that were common, meaning that almost all groups felt the same way. One was meetings should be no more than monthly. My group, for example, meets twice a month, but that was rare. Almost everybody else in our group meant monthly, and they felt like they meant more than that. That would be wasted effort and time. And then the other thing that just about everybody agreed on is hybrid meetings just don't work, mainly because it's hard to get the people that are connected in by Zoom to be able to hear what's going on and be able to feel like they're participants in the meeting. The ones that are in person do, but the ones that are Zooming in don't. Then we were all over the map, everything from a medicine called Macuna, which I had never heard of, but now we'll definitely research. That's somewhat of an alternative medicine equivalent to a dopamine agonist. And then probably the last of the meeting I hogged because I explained how my support group is a small rural Alabama support group and has another one in another town that's kind of down a highway from it with a town in the middle. And the middle is the one where really the support group meeting probably should take place because it has the most infrastructure, but it doesn't. So the 2 groups on either end have conspired together to have a joint meeting. And all of a sudden, this joint meeting has generated a lot of interest among the people holding the meeting. And it's turned into a symposium where lots of folks are being invited to speak, and we're providing lunch, and there's sponsors, and the Parkinson's Foundation is very active in it. The Parkinson's Association, not the PMD, but the association is very involved in it. And I'm to the opinion of, or maybe the worry that we'll all have a blast and it'll be wonderfully successful, but no one else will come. So we'll market it the best we can and see what happens, but we're going to have it in April because April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. Other than that, we just compared notes about how far the range of our support group. We went from Manhattan to rural Arkansas. So we had not only a variation in opinions, but accents as well. That's all I know to report.
I do know a lot of people have said that they find the hybrid frustrating because of what you were talking about, and how then also the people who have shown up feel like it gets catered to those on Zoom. And so like, I know that's been very frustrating. So thank you for sharing.
So in our group, we talked about exactly that subject, and I described a prescription which solves that problem. Because I belong to several groups who now have very successful hybrid meetings, and they don't have that complaint anymore. And you can do it fairly cheaply. But it involves breaking away from the idea that you can do it with one computer. So offline, if anybody wants me to describe the setup that works, and it works very well. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback since we made the change to conducting our hybrid meeting that way. And it's useful.
If you're comfortable putting your contact information in the chat so people could reach out to you, that'd be wonderful. And then how about room 5 with Kai, Nasreen, and Shabir?
I took notes. You We had a really good discussion, including a lot of the stuff that people already talked about. We kind of broke down it into, it was 2 topics. It was sort of like, what can we do to promote the meeting to get people to come? And then the other ideas were more of how to make the meetings more interesting, thereby making, hopefully, people want to come. We also did talk about how the hybrids are very challenging to kind of get to that intimacy that we're all kind of missing. So Bernard, definitely going to touch base with you because I'd love to find out more information on how you successfully do that. Some of the things we talked about in terms of that intimacy is doing an alternating meeting. So one meeting is Zoom, one meeting is in person. And although I just do it once a month, somebody in our group, Donna, very successfully does it every 2 weeks. That may work for some. We talked about things like one group has brochures that is specifically for support groups and business cards. And so when they're around town, they hand it out and give the information to people, which I thought was a good idea. Wellness fairs to promote the support groups specifically, which was a good idea. We go to wellness things and we promote just Parkinson's in general, but I like the fact that, you know, they really push the support groups. Someone had a really good question about trying to figure out what is your support group for? Is it to address social, is it a social component? Is it for education? Are we trying to be everything to all people, or, and thereby, you know, kind of watering down the information? And Bernard talked about that a bit too, is to build on that social component so people feel a part of that group and want to show up. And please jump in if anyone has any things. One of the things which is so simple is, what time is our meeting? And made me think, because my meeting is probably not the best time, where people are probably hitting a bit of traffic. So it didn't even dawn on me to change the day and meeting time. So something as simple as that could make a change. Promoting in local newspapers. Most local newspapers have a community calendar that you could post online for free. Many of us have a local Parkinson's Association with a newsletter that they'll allow us to post our support groups in there. Promoting in churches or other community groups that you're in, libraries. What else? We had talked about so many great things. Also, too, to create a better atmosphere, just simple things like, how are your chairs set up? My chairs are set up like, you know, a big conference table with people sitting around it, but that table seems to be kind of a barrier. So, you know, we sit in a circle, so we feel more connected. Shabir had a great idea about a talking stick. You go around in the circle, and whoever has the talking stick, it's a couple of minutes to talk. And I love that idea. That was great. Also, at the beginning of the meeting, let people know what the schedule or the agenda of the meeting is, so that new people that show up feel comfortable. They know what's going to happen during the meeting. And that was a good one. And someone else mentioned a new camera that's kind of a 360 camera that might be beneficial for people doing a hybrid. So that might be something to look into. Just lots of stuff from soup to nuts, so lots of great ideas. And anybody, please chime in who was in our meeting.
I think one of the challenge that Kai mentioned is not necessarily the tools for hybrid, but how do you really get the same emotional involvement with people who are on Zoom versus people who are already there? And that is a challenge. It's not something that you can just, you may still miss out some people, not, so I don't know. I don't have an answer, but that is a challenge, not necessarily just the tools wise, but the, how do you facilitate so everybody's involved?
Discussion. And I do think it's nice that you're kind of going like, maybe I do need to rethink when I do it because of traffic, or, you know, maybe that is a deterrent that I didn't think about because I was okay with it, but other people might not be. And again, wellness fairs, promoting, making sure people are aware of it. I think this was incredible. I hope everybody's kind of taking notes, and we will be sending this out. I know we're running a little over, but I do want to hear from room 6, Bill, Carol Smith, Joey, Ian Robertson, Linda, and Randy. Say, who wants to come off mute and chat?
I got nominated, so not to beat a dead horse. We've heard a lot of great comments, and we're kind of seconding a lot of those. I definitely, one of the biggest takeaways I have is you need to be flexible. You need to have flexibility when it comes to virtual meetings or in-person meetings. And that flexibility stems from, sometimes it's geography. Like there was a few of us in the group that their group's virtual, and they literally service an entire state and sometimes multiple states to their group, which literally makes it, unless somebody's really into carpooling, you pretty much have to do it virtual. But in my case, our group in Yuma, we went dormant for 2 years during COVID because nobody really kind of stepped up and wanted to take on that virtual technology and that responsibility. So it's just been the last 6 months since we went back to in-person that we've really started getting folks coming back out again. So it just shows you the two ends of the spectrum there. When we talked a little bit about when you do want to go back into person, selecting a location, it can be take a lot of things into consideration. Some of the folks in the group meet at senior centers, assisted living facilities. In our group, we actually meet at a restaurant. So what we did was we chose the time of the day. It's at 2:30 in the afternoon until 4. So it's after the lunch crowd and before dinner. So the restaurant's actually empty when we're in there, even though we do have a private room. But it's that dormant time in the restaurant, so it's quiet and we get it all to ourselves. And so kind of take those things into consideration. One of the other things was, even though we do routinely have speakers come in and talk about different aspects of Parkinson's or healthcare in general, we delegate a lot of our time for social. So at our group, we start our meeting at 2:30 in the afternoon. The first 30 minutes is exclusively social time. So we don't do any announcements. We don't interrupt anybody. We let them pick up, we put pizza out. Folks can grab a couple slices of pie, sit down with their iced tea, and purely just socialize for the first 30 minutes. And that seems to have been a big hit. Everybody likes doing that before the speaker starts. And then one of the big things I took away from our support group leader group here was at our last meeting, we talked about delegating responsibilities. I found a couple of ladies in our group that don't want to be leaders, but they do want to take on some role within the group. So one of our delegates, he took on the responsibility to notify members or to make reminder calls. And I was not an advocate for this. Like, I think email is plenty, but she actually calls everybody on the list and physically reminds them of the upcoming meeting, which is incredible, right? But she has the time and she likes to do it, and she's chatty. So that's fantastic. And that has paid dividends, right? Folks tell me when they come to the meeting that they got reminded, by the day before to come. And then one of the other ladies, she's really hooked into the local community media. So she does an incredible job of getting our announcements put into the local newspapers, the community publications, and the radio. So we do all of those things. And at our last meeting, we had about 40 people attend, and almost half of them were all new, first timers. And they came because they either heard it on the radio or they saw it in one of the local publications. So those things definitely get people out.
Sounds amazing. Oh, I'm glad you guys had a really good group.
Yep. So thank you. I'm afraid for the next one. That's I'll have to order a lot of pizzas before the next one, but Yeah, I'm
But I
happy
was-
to, happy to.
Yeah. Oh, how wonderful. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today and hanging with us till the end. I really hope that you guys got inspired and kind of went, you know, I haven't tried that. Let me try that. Let me look into that. Maybe I don't have business cards, but they're not expensive to print. And the joy of online is I could just Google business cards and something will come up and I can probably get them printed. And this is really going to be wonderful. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time and I look forward to seeing everybody, some of you perhaps at fundamentals that are new leaders and the rest of you next month at our March meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.